The following takes place between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m.
Now, okay, I've got my lab is almost 9 years old.
Yep.
Romeo, love him to death. And so what is there to look out for if you have an older dog or younger dog, or if you have a cat? What are the signs you look out for? Because these are questions that, especially when your dog or getting to that old, is getting older, what are the signs to look for being diabetic? Obviously, you would assume that it'd be the same as humans in one thing, urinating a lot.
Right, and drinking a lot. We remember we were talking about Romeo and his Cushing's. The signs of diabetes and the signs of Cushing's are exactly the same.
But he didn't have Cushing's.
I know.
That makes me wonder.
No, but he didn't have, we tested him for diabetes too, so don't worry.
Okay,
but they drink a lot, they pee a lot, and the reason why people don't know this, but when you are a diabetic, you have a lot of sugar in your blood, and you can't absorb it into your body because you don't have insulin.
Yeah.
And so what your body does naturally is it wants to flush that out in your kidneys, and so you drink more because of that. And that's why you end up peeing more, because you drink more. So that's the whole reason why people and pets drink more and pee more when they have diabetes. It's just because there's so much sugar in your blood that's not being used, and your body goes, listen, I got to do something with this stuff. Let's get rid of it. And so that's why the way we diagnose diabetes a lot of times in dogs and cats is just that they have sugar in their urine. That's
Really?
because it's flowing from their blood. It's not going into their body, so then it goes into their pee.
How long is the testing stage? Like, what do you do right away? Is it
It's easy. That's the thing about diabetes. It's like, if I have a cat that comes in, they're drinking a lot, peeing a lot, I literally can run a blood sugar on them in 2 seconds, and we have the answer. And their levels, like my mom is diabetic, and what's funny is the normals for people and the normals for dogs are the same. It's usually between 3 and 8. Now, my mom, when she's high, meaning that when she's not high, when she's high with her sugar, she feels really off at around 12 and 14. And that's, if you talk to most diabetics, I've seen cats come in and they're 40.
Wow.
Can you imagine having a normal's 3 to 8 and they're at 40? These guys are like loaded with sugar. I mean, they're almost comatose. They're so high on sugar. So it's just kind of neat. Their blood sugar can go so much higher than people, and yet they don't seem to have some of the ill effects that people have when they have high blood sugars. So
we're getting a high five from the people in the production booth.
Oh.
As soon as you mention the word high,
okay. So everybody's high-fiving. I got you. Cool.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's really interesting about the human effect as opposed to the animal effect and how the correlation is there. And we had that actually a couple of weeks ago when we had Tony from the Premier Fitness talking a little bit about the same thing with overweight animals and joint treatments. Now, treatment-wise, this is where always it gets me, because I always think, okay, how much money is this stuff going to cost? What are my options?
Right.
The first thing is, do you have options?
You do.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think that's the thing someone wants to know right away.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, you know what? You've got 3 or 4 options. Here's your most cost-effective option. Here's something that is very expensive. Here's a new trial treatment which will make you look like Richmond. Or
now,
Janelle.
Here's the neat thing is that typically speaking, when it comes to diabetes, there's only 2 things you have to do. Now, if you have a kitty cat and they're in the early stages of diabetes, you can try these oral hypoglycemic agents. But let's pretend we're in the late stage and now we need insulin. They need to be on a special diet, just like people.
Yeah.
And diet's no more expensive than any other diet, so that's really not that bad. And insulin, surprisingly enough, is quite cheap. Like a little bottle of insulin, 100 units, is $8. Okay, and typical cat would get 2 units twice a day. So that bottle would last them about a month, 25 to 30 days. So it's about $8 a month, which to me, for a disease that if you leave it alone can be life-threatening, I think that's not that bad. I think where people spend the most money on diabetes, even with OHIP, is not the medication, it's the testing. Like if Romeo had Cushing's, it's not it's not the medication necessarily that's expensive. It's constantly doing blood tests, and retesting and retesting and retesting. So those are the sort of things that are the most expensive with cats and dogs that are diabetic is the monitoring, not the treatment. The treatment tends to be pretty inexpensive.
What about complications? Because you're getting treatments, you don't know what's going on. There could be complications to all this stuff, and to diabetes in general.
Totally. Now, there's things that are going to happen when you're diabetic and you take insulin. Either you give yourself too much insulin, you go too low. That's extremely dangerous because you can go into a coma from too low blood sugar. Okay. Some people just naturally they use up all their sugar stores and they faint. That's hypoglycemia, right?
Is it like people when you're walking around like, oh, I need a chocolate bar, and you take the chocolate bar
and you're fine?
But you can't do that with a dog, because the dog's, here's a chocolate bar. Oh boy, I just gave my dog chocolate. I just poisoned my dog. Oh no.
No, but I'm going to tell you, this is an interesting story, and this happened in my second year of practice. I had a cat who came in, and I'd never seen this cat before, and the cat was comatose. It was laying on the floor, on the table, looked like it was dead. Well, it wasn't. And I looked at her, I said, what's happening? She goes, well, my cat's diabetic, and I just gave him an insulin shot an hour ago. I went, uh-oh. And thankfully, I lived upstairs. I ran upstairs. You're not going to believe, this honestly happened. I grabbed some maple syrup, no word of a lie, ran downstairs, just took some maple syrup and poured it on his gums, and no word of a lie, the cat sat up and was perfectly normal. So the cat was literally dying of hypoglycemia. Like, his blood sugar, I guess she had given him too much insulin. She didn't know she did, but she did.
Wow.
And his blood sugar dropped, and all I had to do was rub maple syrup or corn syrup, or, I always tell diabetic owners of cats and dogs to always have something sweet. You don't want to give them a chocolate bar, obviously, like you said.
Maple syrup?
Maple syrup. Anything that's really sweet, if you touch it to their gums, it absorbs right away, right into their bloodstream, almost instantly.
Yeah.
It's quite cool. So, save that cat's life. It was kind of fun. I was young at the time, so I was thinking I was a hero at the time. I was pretty proud of myself. But it was kind of cool just to see this cat who was literally looked like it was dying, and then boom, sitting up looking at you.
Wow, that's
it was
fantastic.
Cool. Yeah.
Oh.
So that was neat. So that's one of the dangers, is going too low. And of course, the other danger is going too high, where your blood sugar is always high, always high, always high. And there's an interesting thing that can happen to people and to cats and dogs, and it's called ketoacidosis. And I know that's a big word, but I'll explain it in 2 seconds. Kind of neat. When you don't have sugar, because your insulin isn't allowing sugar to go into your body to use for energy, your liver starts to produce these thing called ketones as energy. The problem is ketones turn your blood really acid and you get, so your body literally starts to be like acid. Your blood starts to be like acid, and it starts to eat away at your body. So your body's doing this thing to try and save itself, and at the same time, it doesn't realize it. It's kind of doing the wrong thing. And that's called ketoacidosis. And I'll tell you, people who are on that Atkins diet?
Yeah.
That's what
they
they're
get
doing.
that?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's neat. Some people can smell ketones on people's breath, and if someone has ketoacidosis, you can actually, people who are sensitive to it can actually smell it. It's kind of cool. And people who are on the Atkins diet, they have ketones in their breath too. And if someone who can smell it, they can smell that too.
So I guess that people listening right now all across the world, they want to know, maybe they can't afford it, hard economic times right now.
Right.
What happens if you don't treat it?
Well, if you don't treat diabetes, eventually this ketoacidosis happens, and dogs who get ketoacidosis will eventually, within 2 or 3 days of getting it, will die.
So is it the same thing? I mean, before you get to the extreme measure of the animal dying, is it the same thing as in, say, humans, where you can lose the you can lose certain limbs, you can lose vision, you can lose.
Yeah, no,
is that the case?
But the problem is it happens really fast in cats and dogs,
Really?
a lot faster than it does in people. Well, because nobody who's diabetic doesn't get treatment when they're humans, right? See, that's the difference. And the scary part is that initially when dogs and cats turn diabetic, they're eating a lot. These are older animals. They're drinking. They're eating. Most people think their dogs and cats are doing really well. I call it that sort of scary disease, in the sense that you can go for a long time without even knowing that your cat or dog has a problem. Because look at my old cat. All of a sudden she's drinking now and she's eating now. So you get this false sense of security that your old cat now looks great. And all of a sudden they start losing weight and losing weight and losing weight. And then they get this ketoacidosis. Humans, I just find they never get that bad, where they go to that sort of extreme, where they lose their limbs and their vision and stuff like that.
And that's the good thing about the scoop-free system that we like to give away from Lucky Litter, because they keep an odometer which monitors how often you go to the bathroom. You know what?
And if you had a diabetic cat, you'd know it thanks to the Scoop Free.
Fantastic! If I was diabetic, which I'm not, but if I was, I'd get one of those things and use it for myself. Okay. I kid you not.
Gee, am I peeing too much? Let me pee in the litter. Yeah,
exactly. Ooh, look, yeah, it takes the smell away too. Now, finally, before we go to break, what does the future hold? I mean, technology keeps growing. Future in terms of testing new medications. Will Superman, the next movie, be out better than the other one?
And he won't be diabetic.
He is diabetic. Other than kryptonite makes him diabetic.
Okay. Yeah, there's a ton of new drugs for cats and dogs. I mean, when I graduated, they didn't have a veterinary insulin, an insulin specifically for cats and dogs. Now they have 3 types of insulin for cats and dogs. In the old days, I used to use Ultralente, which is a human insulin, and Toronto insulin, which is a human insulin. We used to just use human insulins, and we kind of just did our best. We also have a lot better diets nowadays, a lot of great diets for diabetic animals, so that's improved over the years. And I just think we're getting better at doing wellness tests so that we can pick up diabetes before it gets bad. So those are the things that have really changed. I'm seeing way more diabetic animals now, but we're treating them better than we ever did before. So it's kind of cool. We've come a long way.
And hopefully in the next year or two, more things will come out. I mean,
I'm sure
we have new drugs now for obese dogs. We have drugs now for dogs that have motion sickness.
So if we can get rid of the obesity, we're going to definitely decrease the diabetes for sure. That's the number one cause in older dogs of type 2 diabetes and cats is obesity. Absolutely number one. I've never met an old skinny cat with diabetes. They're all overweight.
Awesome.